Welcome to Charge the Wave, focused on entrepreneurs, executives, and icons who are giving it their all to build companies, cultures, and communities. Without further ado, here's our next episode. Charge the Wave is brought to you by Footnote 4. Footnote 4 dedicates Charge the Wave to the late Duke Kahanamoku from 1890 to 1968. The greatest waterman, pioneer, and American icon of our time. The diversity movement. Today's episode is brought to you by the DEI navigator from the diversity movement. It's a familiar scenario. You've been hired to lead diversity, equity, and inclusion. But you don't have the resources and network or maybe even a job description, let alone a strategic plan and a budget. You need help. That's why the diversity movement created DEI Navigator. This monthly subscription service is designed for small to mid-sized businesses that are committed to DEI action. DEI Navigator is everything you need, all in one place. Access to our award-winning team of diversity advisors, expertly curated content, how-to guides, specialized training, courses, and workshops, and a subscription to our micro videos platform recognized by Fast Company magazine as a 2022 world-changing idea. You get all these resources and more with DEI Navigator, and all at a fraction of the cost of hiring a full-service DEI consultancy. Visit www.thediversitymovement.com/footnote to learn more. Candle Cares. Candle Cares is a web tool that helps you be the light for others every night and helps your caregiving crew organize their tasks on a daily basis. Coming soon to Apple and Android. Outrigger Cold Brew Coffee Co. Outrigger Cold Brew Coffee Company is cold brewing the Aloha spirit from soil to sip, waking up the wayfarers with its signature Hawaiian blends of coffee beans and roasting styles, including 100% Kona coffee. Be wherever you may, and whatever your next challenge, we're cold brewing our next batch of Aloha spirit, from soil to sip, to help you charge the wave.
On today's episode is my dear friend Helen Wan, author of The Partner Track, an American dream story about a young woman of color navigating the alien culture at a powerful global law firm. It's about chasing ambition while attempting to live authentically at work and remaining true to ourselves and our values. It's also available now as an original TV series on Netflix. Helen is an esteemed author, speaker, lawyer, and diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant. And more importantly, one of the best people I know. Without further ado, here's our next episode. Welcome to Charge the Wave, Helen.
Hi, great to be here.
Before we jump right in, did you want to provide a brief intro and background for the audience?
Oh, sure. No, it's a pleasure to be here in conversation with you. And my name's Helen Wan. I am a lawyer turned author and speaker and DEI consultant. And I wrote a book years ago called a novel called The Partner Track, which has recently been turned into a new TV series on Netflix.
Wonderful book and wonderful TV series. I love them both. Congratulations on all your success with The Partner Track, which we'll get to for sure. But let's start with how it all began. Would love to hear a little bit about your origin story, where you grew up, how you would describe it.
Oh, sure. Well, I grew up in Central California. Well, I was born in Central California. I moved at a young age, pre-kindergarten. My family moved to the East Coast. So I guess my formative years were really spent growing up in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., where my family still is. And I knew that I wanted to write from a fairly young age, but also I knew that, you know, being the child of first-gen immigrant parents, that kind of me moving to a garret in New York City to kind of like find my voice as a poet probably wasn't in the cards, you know, immediately after school. Perhaps something more practical career-wise might be in the cards. And so I actually ended up going to, of all things, a magnet science and tech, STEM, high school, called the Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology, in the general DC area. And from there, I went to college, where I majored in English. And when it came time to make some decisions about next steps after graduation, and I thought, well, what does a liberal arts college English major really do? Really do? And what do I love? What am I passionate about? I was passionate about words and working with words. And so in sort of the Asian American parent approved group of careers, I thought, well, I guess lawyers work with words, right? So so I took the LSAT, and I did well enough to get into law schools. I picked one, and there I was in law school. And then, not to date myself, but it was a much more pre-professional focused time at the time that I was graduating from law school. And when I went to the OCC, the Office of Career Counseling, to speak with folks about, well, what else can lawyers do with our JD degree and my English major, my English degree, other than big law, or like being going to a huge law firm, and literally the answer back then, I'm sure it has changed, it has evolved now, but the answer back then was, well, look, you've got the goods, you've got the grades, so why not do the on-campus recruiting by the big law firms? I mean, they literally come to campus and recruit people with the grades. So why not? That makes life easy, right? So I did it, and then I did that, and I was lucky enough to get some offers, and I realized that it just was going to be so much easier to wipe out my student debt if I did that. And so I took a job at a large law firm, and when I landed there, it was just such an utterly alien environment to me, so unfamiliar. I really felt like wow, this corporate culture is really something else, very interesting. So I started writing the partner track then. It wasn't called the partner then; it was just my subway scribblings to and from work, but eventually it did become the partner track.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you notated the experience. It was very enlightening and educational, and entertaining as well. Are there any unique or interesting challenges or experiences you recall from your childhood or formative years?
Yeah, certainly. I grew up in a very, very kind of, then, not diverse. Now it has, actually, the neighborhoods around there have become much more diverse. But back then they were very homogenous, very, very white cul-de-sac that I grew up in. And we were the only, originally we were the only Asian American family on the block. And then by the time I went to high school, that had changed. There were others, but we were the first we were the first Asian American family to live on that block. And so all of my friends were all of my friends were white. I had no Asian American friends, or there were very few people of color who were in that particular area then. And I certainly was the only Asian American girl in my in my kindergarten and first grade class. And again, that had changed by the time like sixth grade rolled around too. But there are all of those identity issues about, well, I am in one way I'm happy to see more students of color in my elementary school, but at the same time, you don't want to get too close. You know what I mean? Lest you be mixed up every single day. So that was sort of my experience of elementary school and junior high as well.
Sounds like we had pretty similar
Oh,
upbringings. Any mentor or champions, role models you'd like to give a shout out to from your early voyage, your
oh,
early
sure.
years?
Um, I was very lucky to have a lot of great elementary school teachers, school librarians. I was the book nerd who volunteered in the library, like in my spare time, when I wasn't in school. And I just found a lot of solace in reading great books, and my teachers, especially my reading teachers, who kind of would take the time to say, "Hey, have you ever read this author? Have you ever read this book? Have you ever heard of I don't know, Judy Blume? Have you read Beverly Cleary?" And I hadn't until they literally put them in my hand, placed them in my hand. And yeah, I've had many really kind mentors and sponsors along the way. Mm.
How did you ultimately choose Amherst College and then subsequently University of Virginia School of Law to attend?
Oh, uh, actually, again, I didn't grow up in I didn't grow up in the kind of um, Asian American family that had even heard of Amherst College or the small liberal, Williams, Swarthmore. It's not that they were kind of like, you must go to, you must do the Ivy League or nothing, but they just simply hadn't heard of them. So again, it was a really, really thoughtful, kind, and wise high school guidance counselor who actually my beginning of junior year said, "Well, have you? Okay, I see that you've um, made the list that we told everyone to make about like, hey, where do you think you would be happiest going to school?" And she said, "But I noticed that you don't have any small liberal arts environments on here. Have you considered a place like Amherst, Williams, or?" And I said, "No, I had no." I don't even know what you're talking about. And she said, "Oh, well, I really think that you might thrive there. You might really find a great community there, and it might be up your alley. Check it out." And I did. So I went on the college tour that was actually organized by the school, that specifically visited a lot of the more liberal arts type colleges, and not just focusing on the kind of the obvious kind of large Ivy League schools that a lot of people were focused on in my high school. And yeah, I just fell in love. I just fell in love with the Amherst campus. It makes such a difference to who you meet. And I had a wonderful host, and sat in on 3 classes, all of which I found fascinating. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait to be in college." I can't wait to major in English here. And so that's how I ended up at Amherst. Um, and, oh, and you asked about UVA law as well. That one was more, it, um, I had applied to basically the handful of, the 8 or 9 schools that consider themselves top 5, um, and I got into some of them, and UVA was the one where I got in-state tuition, an
Oh,
in-state
wow.
tuition package. So I realized, wow, like that is a great bargain in higher education. So I did that.
You're known as an acclaimed author nowadays, but it takes a lot of years to become a overnight success. Would love to hear, you told us a little bit how you started on your career trajectory. Would love to hear a little bit about your career path overall, some stops you had along the way, and where you are today.
It's funny. I really appreciate whenever like people will ask me to sign a book or something, or I'll hear something or read some sort of review that says the acclaimed novelist There was something. The trailer when the Netflix show first came on, and there was a trailer that said based upon the critically acclaimed novel, and my son, who's in elementary school, was like, "What's the critically acclaimed novel? Who's the?" We're like, me, your mom. Come on, it's mom. He was like, "Oh yeah, okay, cool." But anyway, stops and starts along the way. Well, I began my career, in the big law firm in New York, and I was observing enough just interesting patterns about just success and just people's complicated relationships with ambition, and how all of this is influenced by their family heritage and background, and race and privilege and class, etc., and gender. So that when I started writing these journal entries, they were just kind of like observations about city life and about firm life, just group and organizational dynamics in a workplace, and particularly in a corporate environment type workplace. And so I literally started journaling about them, like writing down the observations when I was walking around Midtown Manhattan, writing down character sketches of people that I found interesting in one way or other. And when I had a critical mass of those pages, I started showing them to some trusted friends, and who were not all lawyers, but many of them were my classmates who found themselves in similar work type situations, and were kind of like, "Oh, this is not what I expected," or and so I started showing these pages that I had started writing to some people, and they said, "I think you should try to. You never see stories like this being told. I think that you should try to get some of these published." And I didn't know the first thing about publishing, because I was, I was like working these 80-hour work weeks at a large law firm. So, so I tried to educate myself about how people get a first book published. I went and got one of those books that is how to get a novel published, how to get a first book published for dummies. And I literally followed those instructions, and I got offers of representation that way, by cold, sending pages, literally mailing pages at the from the post office to these agents and querying them that way. And from that, I actually did get fairly quickly, surprisingly quickly, a couple of nibbles and offers of representation. And then, but a lot of rejections over the way too, a lot of no's. In one thing that people had told me over 20 years ago, when I started this whole crazy project, was, you got to have a really thick skin. You have to have a thick skin, because otherwise you have to persevere. You have to have a lot of resilience and persevere, and have a lot of patience as well, and have a very thick skin, which I don't have by nature. So, so I had to kind of teach myself that, hey, there will be many, many no's, but all you need is one yes, if it's the right one. So, but yes,
I'm a big believer.
Yeah,
of the power of one.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Yeah. And I got a lot of no's. Some were really thoughtful no's, like, hey, I really hope to see this published and this story out there, but I know that I won't be able to push this through, because I know that I won't get this greenlit. Because when they floated it, people were like, well, I don't understand, who is this story trying to mark? How would we market this story? Is she trying to be John Grisham, David Baldacci, Scott Turow, or Amy Tan? I don't know which bucket is she trying to? Would we fit her into? Which bucket, would she be in? And I just thought, well, do I have to be in any one of those existing buckets can people try something new or different? Would that be okay? And so, but it's very encouraging that now, decades later, people are more open to newer and more buckets. Hopefully, I think.
You're an attorney, a wizard with words, spent lots of time in the library, majored in English. Is there anything else in your background and experience that you believe drew you to being an author?
Oh, yeah. Yes. So one thing that growing up, I had always, every time I fell in love with a book, I was just so blown away by the power of words, right? To change minds or to shed new light on a subject, or just show a different perspective to someone. There were a lot of books that did that for me. Unfortunately, a lot of them seem to be the ones that sometimes are being banned now. Classic books that are sometimes now being banned. But for example, like when I read The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison and other works by Toni Morrison, actually Roald Dahl, actually Judy Blume, all books that I loved, and I found so just transformative in terms of their ability to sort of show you this whole different wonderful imagined this wonderful world, or a different perspective, so different from anything that I had lived, and it just so I knew I always believed in the power of books, and so I think that coupled with going to law school, being trained as a lawyer, and being around some people who had a keen sense of justice, and being able to tell stories that tell convincing stories that hopefully make for a positive outcome, making the world a better place, hopefully, made me want to write on these themes.
And all the stories you could have told, and I'm sure you have a lot of written pages that the public has never seen. What specifically compelled you to the partner track? And would love if you wanted to share a little bit, hear more about the book, just for those who haven't read it yet or seen the Netflix series.
Sure. Just the story that I wanted to tell with this book was just the experience of a person of color trying to be the first, like the one and only, the first, and get that holy grail of partnership in a traditionally white male dominated corporate environment. I just wasn't, they always tell aspiring writers, and particularly novelists, to write the book. Well, they say, write what you know, number one. But then number two, they say, write the book that you wish you could see on the shelves. That when you yourself, a book lover, walk into your local bookstore, what is the book that you find missing? What are the stories you find missing from those shelves? And for me, it was a story of that, of these kind of relatively newly minted, all smart, all book smart, people trying to vie for the holy grail of partnership at this very, very, very rarefied workplace, very rarefied corporate workplace environment. So, and just how all of the behind the scenes factors influence that. Just who's getting the good, who's getting the special invitations to go play squash on Thursday afternoons, who isn't, and who sits with whom in the corporate cafeteria, and who sits alone, and who, it gets invited to certain pitch meetings or, client calls, and who doesn't, and who is asked to serve on the diversity committee, who's not, who's asked to carry the flag, and who's not. All of those stories were not being told, and now they are. So I'm really happy that only 20 years later, more attention is being paid to these issues that I was trying to focus on back then. And yeah, it's been a great journey. And the happiest surprise from the whole page to TV show process has been just the very enthusiastic support, really kind and positive support that I've been getting from so many different communities, not just lawyers, not just women lawyers, not just Asian Americans, but just everyone. A lot of people are like, "Oh, I hadn't seen this story told. I hadn't really seen this story out there, and thank you for putting it out there." And a lot of that comes from people who are not who I would have expected, frankly. Like senior white male partners who are chairmen of DC or Boston or New York law firms who find out how to contact me through my publisher and send a note saying, "Hey, I really, really liked the chapter 4, the firm outing scene. That I've never seen that environment depicted so authentically, and I appreciate that. And as a result, yeah, my firm doesn't. I'm the chairman of the firm, and I don't want to do those golf outings anymore. Didn't realize that would make people feel like that, and I don't want to do that. So we're not doing that anymore. So that's the kind of thing that makes you feel like, so that's why authors kind of like bang your head against the wall for 20 years, is to get a message out there like that.
And it was really neat to see. First of all, I know our Above the Law audience really enjoyed the column, your feature, and the social and workplace commentary you had resonating with the powers that be in the industry, and the fact that you are now speaking at a lot of these big law firms and white shoe law firms to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, how to make the workplace more inclusive is wonderful. All stemming from this novel. So many paths can be taken from here, and it's been just great to see your journey. What I thought was incredible, you always read a book, and then when you see it on the TV screen, how they transform it, or their kind of view perspective, how they wanted to highlight certain areas of the novel. Did you have and concepts and narratives, and did you have a favorite moment or a favorite scene of the Netflix series, or a couple that you wanted to highlight?
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely enjoyed the Netflix series. I didn't know what to expect, and I expected like, okay, I'm gonna, a novel, especially your first novel, is your baby, right? So you just don't know what to expect when someone's adapting it for the screen. But I genuinely, I binge watched it in a weekend. I loved it. I was like, oh my God, these characters are so great, So, I love that. So, but my favorite episode actually was, I believe it's episode 4. It's called Out of Office, and it is the firm outing episode. And they shot it on location at a actual country club, at an actual country club. And later, it's been such a pleasure to get to know this particular crew and cast, and so when I was speaking with some of the cast members, who all are so thoughtful and really kindly have told me, hey, the reason why it was important to me to land this particular role, and that I really, really, really was happy when I got this role, was that this aspect of that character's backstory really resonates with me. And I just thought it was so thoughtful of them to tell me that personally. But anyway, that is my favorite episode out of all of them, is that firm outing scene. It was just so well done, that the the white fragility scene, and this is not a spoiler. There's a scene that is pretty discomforting to some people from a diversity, equity, inclusion angle. And it's just, I thought the depiction of it in that episode was done really, really well. So believable. So yeah, I really appreciate the thoughtfulness and care that they gave that particular chapter from my book.
Any surprises from the audience reception or the media coverage of the Netflix series?
Just that it came, the really positive and supportive response coming from so many different quarters, not just limited to, the audiences that perhaps might have been expected, like Asian Americans or people of color or lawyers of color or women lawyers or something. No, it was just, I've heard from so many different people, and a great byproduct of seeing your work adapted for Netflix or anywhere is just people coming out of the woodwork, old friends, classmates, my high school English teacher, other people I hadn't heard from in a long time, saying, oh my goodness, I didn't, I read your book, but I had no idea that it was going to be I was just going to be flipping through, like just trying to figure out something to stream and see your story out there. That's amazing. I heard from my high school prom date, people I truly have not been able to connect with in years, and that has been a really happy thing.
Anything you wish you knew when you began your career, or anything you would tell your younger self?
Oh yeah, definitely. So many. Where to be? How much time do you have here? I really wish I had just trusted myself to take a lot more risk, educated risk, not crazy risk. I mean, we are still, I am still trained as a lawyer, so I'm pretty risk averse by nature. But just to trust yourself and try to take these educated risks much sooner, because honestly, in most cases, there isn't that much to lose by opening your mouth and asking for something. And in my experience, the older that I got, and the more places that I was practicing law, I realized the more that I asked for things, most of the time people would actually say yes. Like I would say, I think that I want to attend that particular conference because I did some research and it seems like I would make some, helpful professional contacts there. Most of the time, the head of your department or in my case, or the GC would say, hey, okay, yeah, that seems like a good idea. Sure. And if I had realized that sooner, I think that I would have spent less time spinning my wheels. I think that probably I could have gotten the story published much sooner than I did, rather than 12 years after I started writing it. And yeah, I just wish that I had trusted myself to let those around me when I was lawyering know that I wanted to give a shot to this opportunity or that opportunity. The worst they could say is no. The worst that could happen is that I would hear the word no, but I already was hearing the word no so much from the publishing, from my my creative side hustle, that yeah, I think I should have done that. But hindsight is always 20/20, and also I think that that kind of lesson, which most of my friends have learned in their own career paths as well, are they're kind of like, well, you weren't alone in that, but that's one of those lessons that just comes with age, I guess. That kind of wisdom comes with age.
Yeah, and then last question before the break, and then we'll close out the show after the break. What would you consider a success for yourself over the next year over the next 12 months?
Finishing my new book.
Oh,
Finishing a new book would be really exciting. My agent would think that's really exciting. He would be overjoyed. And so finishing the book I am currently working on, which I'm excited about, and also I think that in these challenging and really stressful, anxiety-producing times that we've had recently, many of my friends have done the whole like, hey, let's take some deep breaths, take a step back, and kind of reassess or reevaluate what are the priorities in our lives, and are we doing the work that is the most meaningful to us, making the most of our time that we have, and in a practical and grounded way, how are we living meaningful lives? And I mean both professionally and personally, of course. So I would consider that my goal too.
well, we will take a beat for a message from our sponsors, and then we'll return with the advice segment and the lightning round to close out the show.
Charge the Wave is brought to you by the Diversity Movement. The Diversity Movement DEI Navigator is everything you need all in one place. You get access to a host of resources with DEI Navigator, and all at a fraction of the cost of hiring a full-service DEI consultancy. Visit www.thediversitymovement.com/footnote to learn more. Outrigger Cold Brew Coffee Co. Be wherever you may and whatever your next challenge, Outrigger Cold Brew Coffee Company is cold brewing our next batch of Aloha Spirit, from soil to sip, to help you charge the wave.
Welcome back, Helen. We will start with the advice segment. What's one piece of advice you have for recent graduates about to embark on their career route? Set sail into their professional voyage.
Oh, I think the best piece of advice I could give folks who are just setting out would be to take the time to do the research and meet the people that you need to meet to get a real, authentic sense of the corporate culture, or not necessarily corporate, of the culture of whatever workplace you're entering into. And that means not just the people at the more junior levels, but really trying to introduce yourself in an organic and real way to people at the more mid-level and senior level, roles at your workplace, and just get a sense of their career trajectory, how long it took people to get to a certain place. And also, importantly, whether the place where those folks are is someplace that looks actually good to you. So, in other words, just because you can collect a whole bunch of gold stars, it doesn't mean you have to. Just make sure the gold stars are the right ones.
What advice do you have for others wanting to write a book? You have a little blurb on this on your webpage in the About section of wanting to write a book versus writing a book. What advice do you have for others wanting to write a book, to get them going, to actually writing the next great American novel?
I think every writer wishes they knew that. But what I would say to current aspiring writers is just to start treating it like a real thing in your own mind. Start thinking of it like a real thing, and not just something, a pipe dream, a hobby that if I had more time, if I weren't doing this, if I weren't too busy doing this, then I would sit down and write it. I had to start imposing actual deadlines on myself, and artificial deadlines on myself, by doing things like signing myself up for evening writing classes, like how to begin your novel type classes. And those external deadlines actually kind of worked, because what they were was I was signing up and registering for a deadline, like, hey, next Tuesday, all these strangers in New York City are expecting 20 pages from me. So I better get those done, because it's going to be my round to be read, to be heard. And that's when I started really having more of the edits accumulate. And then pretty soon I had a pile of enough pages to really show an agent. So to start treating it like a real thing, like a client meeting, or like a doctor's appointment, not an appointment not a weekend appointment that you break with yourself for no reason, and just to treat that time as real time, as a real appointment, a real date with yourself to go writing.
I've heard this quote about entrepreneurship and startups, and the founders often just staring into the abyss, chewing glass, getting donkey kicked in the stomach every day. And I would equate that to writing. It can be a very lonesome journey, and it's a long trek, to be sure. How do you manage your mental health and energy runway throughout this whole process of working and writing and family and everything?
Yeah, writing is definitely, for me at least, I find it to be a very isolating experience. And then layer on kind of COVID times and things like that, where people were truly, almost every writer that I know, novelists, journalists, everyone, during these past challenging years, have been like, oh my goodness, writing was already so lonely, and now, and so, and what to write about, who knows what feels timely, topical, relevant, and meaningful, a subject to write about. So I guess a key to at least my writer friends, maintaining our sanity, is just to regularly try to interact, and whether that can only be via a Zoom or whatnot, as face tiles on a screen, or better yet, whenever, if possible, in person, on a regular basis. I find that really, really helpful, just to hear perspectives, hear from other people, interact with other human beings, see their actual human faces, and not just as face tiles. And just interact and see and hear from other different perspectives. That has always been, I think, key to keeping anyone's mental health together, on top of on top of normal adulting duties, etc.
Sure. Thank you for sharing that. And last question before lightning round. I usually ask, what wave will you charge next? What's next on the horizon? You did mention a little bit earlier about your new book. Are you able to share any details, or, pull the string on that a little bit more?
Sure. On the project I'm working on now, and also,
Yeah.
there's another. So I'm hoping to finish, to stick to finish the ending on this current one, which is another novel that it's not a direct sequel to the partner track, but it certainly is a spin on very similar themes that I write about the ways, about a group of talented people from very different, diverse, disparate backgrounds who are not forced, but find themselves having to interact very, very, very closely, and all of the assumptions that people make about each other, most of which are wrong. So, and just all of the ways that group dynamics, organizational hierarchies and dynamics, and just race, gender, socioeconomic class and privilege, your family baggage and history, how all of these things influence people's decision-making process. And so,
Did you mention another as well?
oh yeah, just I have two ideas for the book project after this that I'm really looking forward to jumping into too. But I've never been the kind of writer that can be involved in like 2, 3, 4 different projects at the same time. Some of my writer friends can do that very, very successfully, but I tend to focus on one manuscript at a time.
Well, let's jump into the thunder and lightning round. My favorite morning pick-me-up, and I'm biased, is Outrigger Cold Brew Coffee from the island of Hawaii. Do you have a go-to morning pick-me-up that you prefer?
Also, also coffee, but lately I have been trying to lately I have been trying to switch over to decaf, actually. Okay, just to be perfectly honest, just because I was just downing coffee, trying to finish a bunch of projects, and it was really affecting my sleep. So to be honest, decaf coffee is what I now write with, basically.
Favorite local restaurant?
Oh, there's a wonderful pizza place called Fiamma that everyone in the family can agree on, and the red sauce is terrific. Everyone there is really, really friendly and nice, and it's just fun. That's our go-to. I mean, when you have a small kid, just when you have a small kid at home, then most of the restaurants that you go to do feature a kiddie menu. And so, yeah.
I will have to try that out. It sounds excellent. Favorite hobby besides reading, writing, work?
Yeah, well, when I'm not working, well, especially now that the weather's nicer, I do like to read in we have the reservation, which is very close by here. And also I've been trying to I have been trying to meditate more, because that also helps with. I really, really do find that has helped with just sleep and writing, actually. So I have been trying to do that every morning at the same time.
Favorite sports team, musical, or show?
Oh, actually, sports team, musical, or show. We follow a lot of Premier League football here in this house, and Arsenal is the team that my kid loves, and we follow. But in terms of musical and show, I recently took our son to go see Hercules, which happened to star Tyler Robinson, Bradley Gibson, the actor who portrays Tyler in the partner track, was starring in Hercules. So my son and I went, and that was an amazing production, and I was so proud of him. It was a great show.
Favorite vacation spot?
Oh, let me search my memory for last real favorite vacation spot. I would say Argentina, actually. My husband and I were lucky enough to travel all around Argentina, and it was just such a amazingly the settings were so diverse. You could do, I mean, the city of BA, or the wine region, Patagonia. It really was a wonderful trip, and I would love to go back sometime.
A dream concert. If you could see any musician in concert, who would it be?
Oh, We are going to see The Boss. We're going to go see Springsteen for my first time around later this year. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Jealous.
Yeah, I live near, you know, near this venue in Jersey, and I've never gone somehow. So finally we are.
Dog or cat?
Oh, I like them both. We have neither, but I like them both. But probably a lab, probably a dog. Yeah.
I'm borrowing this question. I have a Labrador, a yellow lab that I adore. I borrowed this question from Tim Ferriss. If you could put anything on a billboard outside a college or law school, what would it be?
Oh,
Any piece of advice?
Oh,
Yeah.
I guess try not to take it all so seriously is what I would put on a billboard, because that would be the billboard that I wish someone had put outside like any school that I had just graduated from. And just realize that not every decision that we make along the way has to work out perfectly. In fact, it won't. It won't. It won't. And so to expect every single thing you do to work out perfectly is kind of self-sabotage. So I wish someone had told me that when I was graduating.
Any other life mottos or slogans or anything you'd put a tattoo of on your body?
It's just, just, I don't know. It's kind of long for a tattoo, but it's okay to kind of stray off the well-trod path once in a while. You can get back on. You can get back on the path if you wish, or you might even discover that, oh, I should have done, I should have tried a different track a long time ago.
Yeah, like the obstacle is the way. Last question. What do you want to conquer next on your bucket list?
Oh, that's a great question. I would love to travel again. I think that travel is so important for everyone, and especially including writers, both nonfiction and fiction. And I think that I know a lot of lawyers who secretly have a half-finished manuscript collecting dust in a drawer, and I wish that people would somehow try to carve out the time to take those out and dust them off and see where those manuscripts lead them. And I think that just seeing different perspectives and whether that's through travel or just getting out there and reconnecting with people or meeting new people is really helpful to getting yourself in the right mindset to shake out those half-written manuscripts and see where they can go.
Any parting or final words for our audience, Helen?
Just thank you for everyone who is supporting these kinds of stories, and supporting by voting with your feet, and that means actually going to the movies to support a new story, going to the bookstore and actually checking out the books that interest you, and buying a theater ticket and actually going to support these stories, because that is really the only way that more of them are going to get told, I think.
We always try to do a gold house open, or a gold open for any AAPI type cinema and movies, and we really try to support that and just love what you're doing. Helen Wan, thank you so much for sharing your stories with our audience. We look forward to following your successes. Until next time, everyone, charge the wave.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Charge the Wave, focused on entrepreneurs, executives, and icons who are assiduously building companies, cultures, and communities. To Until next time, charge the wave. Charge the Wave is brought to you by Footnote 4. Footnote 4 has had a front row seat to many recent successes in the last several years, both advising and consulting for incredible individuals and teams who have risen above their stations by building high-performance crews and cultures, and carving their own paths throughout various industries along the way. Footnote 4 dedicates Charge the Wave to the late Duke Kahanamoku from 1890 to 1968, the greatest waterman, pioneer, and American icon of our time. The Diversity Movement. The Diversity Movement's DEI Navigator is everything you need all in one place. You get access to a host of resources with DEI Navigator and all at a fraction of the cost of hiring a full-service DEI consultancy. Visit www.thediversitymovement.com/footnote to learn more. Candle Cares. Candle Cares is an online tool that helps caretakers take care. Nowadays, caregiving has become a full-time job for one's parents, children, fur babies, and ohana. Candle Cares helps you manage your caregiver crew, loved ones who need care, and everyday tasks. A single candle can light many other candles without losing its own light. Candle Cares helps you be the light for others every night, and helps your caregiving team organize their tasks on a daily basis. Coming soon to Apple and Android. Outrigger Cold Brew Coffee Co. Outrigger Cold Brew Coffee Company is cold brewing the Aloha spirit from soil to sip, waking up the wayfarers with its signature Hawaiian blends of coffee beans and roasting styles, including 100% Kona coffee. As Mark Twain famously proclaimed in his letter from Hawaii, Kona coffee has a richer flavor than any other, be it grown where it may, and call it by what name you please. Be wherever you may, and whatever your next challenge, we're cold brewing our next batch of Aloha spirit from soil to sip to help you charge the wave.